Summary: Harry's told everyone about him and Draco. It's not his fault that they were all too busy at the time to hear what he was saying. "You'll never believe who I ran into today," Harry says, determinedly not looking at Hermione. She doesn't look up from the scroll she's reading. Harry knows she probably isn't even listening to him, as they only managed to get permission for an hour in the Ministry archives, and there's a lot of dusty old scrolls to go through. He's timed this out perfectly. This way he isn't keeping anything from his friends, but he's also saved from the interrogation that would otherwise be unavoidable. He continues. It was Draco Malfoy. He was coming out of Madame Tubfoot's emporium for the perfectly groomed witch and wizard. He says he was buying something for his mother, but I doubt it. Anyway, it turns out he's back from that university in France, the one where he went to study potions. He wants to open a high-end apothecary, and he's looking for business partners. Hermione doesn't curse or give any other indication that she's listening to Harry. He smirks and goes on, "You know, I have all that money just gathering dust in the vault, and you're the one who had suggested investing some of it, so I decided to offer. I figured Malfoy would never say yes, so there wasn't any harm. Except, he did, and now I'm meeting him for dinner today to discuss business plans." Hermione moves her head closer to the scroll and wipes at a spot of dust. Harry gives himself a mental pat on the back and pulls a heavy scroll closer to himself. "Good talk, Hermione." Asterisk, Ron. "You busy?" Harry peeps into the room and smiles in relief. Ron's got his magni-specs on, and he's frowning at a tiny bludger. Harry steps in and takes a seat as far away from Ron's work table as he can. "I'm really confused and I need your advice." Ron picks up a wonky-looking tool and hits the bludger with it. "I had dinner with Malfoy last night to discuss business, as I'm sure Hermione must have already informed you, and it was quite nice, actually." "Yeah, I know. How could dinner with Malfoy have been nice, right? But it was. He's a surprisingly okay bloke when he's not insulting somebody's parents or allying himself with dark wizards. But it's all water under the bridge now, yeah?" Ron curses and throws the wonky tool across the room. He picks up his wand and waves it over the tiny bludger, muttering all the while. "Or is it? How do I know he won't just swindle me off all my money? No, wait, that's stupid. The Malfoys already have money. Then what else is he after?" It's hard to believe that after all these years the Malfoy we love to hate could actually be a nice person. "I had only offered the money out of politeness." Ron taps the bludger with his wand. "I think one meeting isn't enough for me to form an opinion of him. Maybe I should give him another try, in a different setting perhaps, to see how he does." "Yes, I know. I'll invite him to my house for dinner. If he's still the same old Malfoy, he'll probably refuse." "Perfect." Harry stands and moves to the door. "Thanks for the advice, mate. I knew I could count on you." As he's walking down the corridor towards the exit to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, there's the sound of an explosion behind him and Ron's triumphant cheer. Asterisk, "Hi, Mr. Weasley." Harry shouts over the roar of the engine. He'd found Mr. Weasley in his tiny little workshop outside, and he'd seized the opportunity. "I'm really glad you're home today. I had to ask you something." Mr. Weasley pokes at the engine with a screwdriver, jumping back in surprise when the engine makes a whirring sound and then starts roaring again, louder than before. "Do you think people can change?" "I really want to believe that they do, but I'm also worried that I'll be proved wrong. How can someone who's been mean, rude, and a brat his entire life can also be someone who's funny, kind, and brave?" "That's the Draco I've seen these past 3 weeks, and we've met almost every other day, so there's no way he's acting, because no one is that good an actor." "So do you think he's changed?" Mr. Weasley jabs his wand through an opening in the engine cover and jumps back when sparks appear, making the engine sputter once, twice, before starting up again. "Or maybe he's always been this person and we just didn't see it. Why is all of this so confusing? I like him. I really like him, so why can't I just accept him the way he is now without letting his past affect my feelings? After all, my dad wasn't the nicest person while he was at Hogwarts, but everyone always says nice things about him." Mr. Weasley wipes his hands on the flowery apron he's wearing as a cover over his robes and pushes a button, making the engine stop with a drawn-out whine. He looks up and blinks in surprise. "Harry, I didn't see you there." Harry laughs and pats Mr. Weasley's hand before moving for the door. "That's okay. Thanks for all your help." Asterisk. He's hit with a burst of sound, voices, some shouting and some placating, pots and pans and knives chopping things on multiple surfaces around the kitchen. He knows Mrs. Weasley is most likely too busy now to listen to him. That's why Harry's chosen this moment to flew her. It's not like he's scared of how they'll all react once they get to know who he's dating. It's more that he'd rather skip that whole confrontation altogether. At least this way he can say that technically he did inform everybody. If they were too busy at that time to listen to him, it's not his fault. Mrs. Weasley, Harry shouts from the fireplace, making her jump as she passes by him. She glances at the fireplace and smiles at him. Harry, dear, you gave me quite a fright. I'm sorry, I had to tell you something. I hope you're not too busy right now? He asks, smiling apologetically. She's already turned back to the pots on the stove, checking the contents of each pot. Harry continues, you had asked me to bring a friend along, so I am. I'm bringing Draco Malfoy. Mrs. Weasley moves to check on the bread and Harry takes that as his cue to leave. He's done his job by informing her, and yes, it wasn't the bravest way of doing so, but he did almost get sorted into Slytherin. Asterisk, are you sure they know I'm coming? Draco asks for the millionth time, fussing with his tie as they walk towards the burrow. Harry had wanted to take the flu, but Draco refused to suddenly appear in the midst of a house full of Weasleys like that. Harry grabs Draco's hand and holds onto it. His palms are sweaty. Yes, they do. I told Mrs. Weasley myself this afternoon. Draco stops suddenly, making Harry stumble to a halt as well. Does she know the same way your friends know about us? Harry shrugs sheepishly. Hey, at least she knows. In a way, that's more than I can say about your friends. It's Draco's turn to fidget as he starts walking again. Well, I'm waiting until they get over the fact that we're friends before I even bring up the possibility of us being more than that. Besides, it's not the same kind of situation. Your friends are all Gryffindors. Aren't they supposed to be noble and forgiving? Then you don't have any reason to worry. Harry smirks. They reach the door and stop, both looking at each other as they take in the sound of laughter and shouting coming from inside. Draco looks slightly nauseous and Harry squeezes his hand once before knocking on the door. There's a frozen moment of time when Ron opens the door and takes in the sight of the two of them standing there, holding hands and with Draco carrying a large bottle of wine. Then Ron smiles and steps back to let the two of them in. About time the two of you got here. Rosie was getting worried you wouldn't make it. Harry can see Draco smile a little, though it looks more like a pained grimace as he enters the house and takes in the sight of all the Weasleys looking at the two of them. Hello, he says, and Harry's heart feels like it will burst with pride at seeing Draco take the first step. There's an instant barrage of greetings and hugs, and somewhere between all of that Harry and Draco get separated, which is how Harry finds himself cornered by Ron and Hermione. Before he can get a word in, Hermione says, do you really think that after years spent studying in that noisy common room I can't read and have conversations at the same time? Harry shrugs. It was worth a try. Why didn't you say anything? Because, Ron answers for her. When it comes to Malfoy, mate, there's never been any point explaining anything to you. And somehow, you've always been right about him. So we figured, why bother? You are smart enough to know what you're doing. Do you know what you're doing, Harry? Hermione asks, looking at him with concern. Harry feels a rush of gratitude for his friends. Yes, he locks gazes with Draco, who's standing across the room, listening to Mr. Weasley explain the merits of a 4-stroke engine over a 2-stroke engine. He smiles and winks at Draco and enjoys the slight flush that spreads over his cheeks. I do.